if it even works 5% of the time, it's probably better than the Patriot system. I mean, this is the biggest pig in a poke that any American defense contractor has ever thrown on the world. We've given this to almost all of our allies. We were going to give it to Zelensky. I understand that's off now. But I mean, you know, Ted Postall's right. I don't think it's as low as 4%, but I do think it's around 20%. And you spent billions of dollars on this, just like you spent billions of dollars on the F-35, and it has a 27% OR rate. I mean, we're not only dissembling lying sacks of proverbial horse manure. We're crooks. We're crooks. Our companies are crooks. I may change my mind about that section that the Senate is looking at in the NDAA, sharing all this with Israel. Yeah, we'll share it with you, Israel. You're going to pay top dollar. We'll share it. It doesn't work. I don't know. I'm criticizing things I'm not an expert in, but I believe Ted Postall is right about Patriot, and I've seen some of the results. And I think I told you I had a conversation with Bill Perry in his office with my Marine Corps War College seminar. Engineer, the only engineer ever to be Secretary of Defense. And he had a very, very good spiel he gave us. He said, never in the history of air defense and of things that come at you through the air and that you want to defend against have we been able to achieve more than 0.21 kill ratio. Never, because it's just the nature of the geometry and the arithmetic and the different environments. You know, he said any engineer knows you're never going to achieve more than 1 out of 4. And is that worth billions of dollars? Wouldn't it be better to go after some other kind of system, like maybe airplanes or whatever? Anyway, you're going to spend these billions of dollars on something like Iron Dome, and it isn't going to work. It isn't going to work to the point where it justifies the money you've spent on it. And that's why, and this is one thing that Kujat pointed out in his spiel to Glenn Dyson, the ABM treaty was so important. It was so important. And when George W. Bush, my president, abrogated that treaty, that was a failure of the first magnitude, because that treaty, the anti-ballistic missile treaty, set up a regime that was verifiable and enforceable, a regime that the two big powers in the world at the time, the Soviet Union and the United States, agreed to, that could have been expanded. And it said, you don't want to do this because you're creating for yourself an order of magnitude or two increase in costs for so little gain. And that was the biggest technical argument. And the reason that a lot of people agreed to it that might not have agreed to it otherwise. Terrible thing we did when we eliminated that treaty. And of course, it started to spiral. We've gotten rid of every treaty now, including the most dangerous one of all, the INF Treaty. So we've done all this. The empire has done all of this. I mean, we had some help on occasion from others like Europe, but it's been our mistakes, one after the other, ever since Bill Clinton became president. And I don't let any president out of that accusation afterwards. Ever since then, we have made tragic mistakes. And we're paying for them. And we're going to pay more dearly for them, I'm afraid.
Larry, Bloomberg reported that Saudi Arabia is holding indirect talks with Yemenis, with Houthis, and using Omani mediators. It says that they're preparing military options if diplomacy fails. What sort of military options do they have on the part of Saudi Arabia, in your opinion?
I think they've already shown they don't have any. I think against the Houthis, I think they've already demonstrated in how long was that war? I mean, I used to know all the details because I was working in Congress on it, but maybe 15 years. The Saudis have been trying.
12, if I'm
12,
not
yeah,
12 years.
yeah, been trying with our help. Intelligence, bombs, F-15s, extended range F-15s. We gave them everything but the kitchen sink. The only thing we didn't do was put troops on the ground. At least I don't think we did. At one point in time, I thought we did have advisors on the ground. Probably did, really. And they couldn't beat them. So what makes them think they're going to beat them now when they're much more beleaguered than they were then? And they don't necessarily have the United States at their side with all these JDAMs and all this intelligence and everything, because we're busy elsewhere. Oh, we're busy in Iran. I just don't see how the MBS has not become, since he was essentially their minister of defense and started this, he's not become some Karl von Clausewitz. I just don't think he's going to be able to do it. So the best thing they can do is what they're doing with the Omanis, providing good offices, is diplomacy. But if I were the Houthis, they sort of have the upper hand right now in more ways than one. I'm not sure I would surrender that upper hand unless I was going to get some promises out of MBS and the Saudis in general that I could trust. And I'm not sure the Houthis will ever trust the Saudis.
I don't think, Larry, it seems that Donald Trump is sending messages to Iran, but on the Iranian side, they're talking. Today I talked with Professor Marandi. He said that if something happens, it's going to be MOU plus. What does that mean? The plus means Yemen. The plus means Gaza and the West Bank, Palestine. And this is what's going on in the mind of Iranians. I don't see that happening with Donald Trump.
Nor I. But, stranger things have happened when American presidents get desperate. The problem with desperation, or even a facsimile of desperation, I'm not sure Trump knows how to feel desperation. With some presidents, it might have a chance of operating at least on his cognitive faculties. With Donald Trump, I don't think he has any cognitive faculties for this complex type of situation. So who is going to help him do this? You look around the sycophants that and now we're going to have another sycophant apparently with Todd Blanche, his lawyer, or we already got him, in effect. And I can't see anyone offering him advice that he would listen to and maybe adhere to first. And second, I don't see anything that he can do given the situation he's put himself in, except surrender. It'll look like surrender. He had the closest thing to that sort of thing that was masked, as it were, in the MOU. That was a surrender. That document was a surrender, but he had it masked over a little bit. And he might have been able, with his braggadocio and his lies, to mask it enough, at least with his base, to where he would not have done irreparable damage to the Republicans' chance, which he is doing now. He is doing now of winning in the midterms. So he discarded that. He did away with it. I'm assuming on the advice of who? Maybe Bibi Netanyahu. So I don't think the Iranians are going to go back there again. They might go back there if it were gold-plated. They might go back there if they had, and the Omanis too, had absolute assurances that the two channels would be Omani and Iranian, and the Strait would be operated in accordance with their wishes and such. I don't know, but I think he's lost the opportunity to have a failure that he could mask politically. This failure that's coming isn't going to be maskable. It's going to be seen as what it is, I think. Maybe some of the MAGA hardcore won't see it that way, but most Americans will see it that way. And we're already looking at the lowest polls, I think, in the history of polling in terms of disapproval ratings of Donald Trump. I don't know any way he's going to resurrect himself. He'll always have that core out there that loves bullies, that loves Donald Trump, that worships Donald Trump, the Laura Loomer types out in the wider audience. But I think he's losing it. I do think he's losing it politically. Not that the Republicans won't figure out a number of ways to cheat or whatever. Not that ICE might not be deployed to intimidate voters, and even worse. But I think he's lost. I think he's lost, and increasingly, even he is going to have to recognize that. So now's the time when you're not completely beaten to effect some kind of an end to this war. But do I believe he'll do it? Not on your life.
Israel is so much disappointed with Donald Trump's last decision about canceling the attack on Iran.
Yep.
It seems to me that
saved their life, probably. It probably saved their life as the defense, as Katz was trying to tell Netanyahu.
That's so strange, Larry, to me. That's so strange because they said that Smotrich said recently that he's fine with the war going on between Iran and the United States, and they're doing nothing, just sitting aside and looking at what's going on. And right now they're disappointed with the war because they're supposed to be, with the United States in that attack on Iran. Unless they were just tricking us. They're not.
You think?
they're not going to be part of that. It's going to be again between Iran and the United States. They're going to be sitting aside and just watching.
Yeah. They think, I think, some of them anyway, think that if that's were the case, Iran would not unleash its fury on Israel again. I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure Iran won't see through that ploy and unleash its fury on Israel again. And I think that's the end for Israel. As a functioning Jewish state, I think that's the end for Israel. I was looking at the figures yesterday. I don't know I don't know if I can trust this because some of the figures come from Israel and some of the figures come from, it's an international organization that tracks airplane flights and things like that, immigration with an E and an I. And I was looking at the numbers of Israelis who have left, Israeli Jews, and the number of Israeli Jews who are important who have left, doctors, lawyers, corporate chieftains, defense industry executives, and things like that. And you think, okay, well, they got the money. They can buy the planes, they can get out and so forth. And then I was looking at another analysis. Do you think they will come back? When the hostilities are calmed down a little bit. And that was mostly opinion, but it was some pretty astute people expressing their opinions. And the overriding opinion was no. Do you think they'll come back in a year? Do you think they'll come back in 2 years? No. Well, what is that doing to the safe haven that everyone said this place in Palestine for Jews was supposed to be? It ain't no safe haven. And its future is war and more war. And people like Bibi Netanyahu and Naftali Bennett and probably Eisenkot and maybe even others think that's good because they're going to win all those wars and they're going to take territory and they're going to have more Lebensraum. I got news for them. The region is not going to permit that, I don't think. And so this experiment is going to come to a halt. And Iran may get credit for being that state in the region that put a halt to it.